Quick note before today's episode. We're excited to announce that Mind the Model will be recording a live podcast at Claire Hayes' house during South by Southwest Sydney on Thursday, October 16th from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. We'd love to see you there, but we are expecting that tickets will sell out. Register for your free tickets at www.clairehayes.com/clairehayeshouse. We've put a link in the show notes. And now for the show. Welcome to our second episode of Mind the Model, the Modern Marketer's Guide to AI. I'm Nathan Guerra, and I'm joined here today by my co-host, Emily Crellin.
So just given the fact that this is an AI podcast, Nate, just to kick things off, when was the last thing, what did you use AI for last?
I am interested in setting up a potentially my own model running on some hardware at home.
That is fascinating to me. It's something I learned about early in my AI coursework, and I have no idea what it entails. So Please tell me more. There's
a thing called Ollama, and you can use that to then download models. And there are all sorts of different models. And a lot of the really new kind of exciting ones seems to be coming out of China. So you've got things like Quinn, QWEN, and of course, DeepSeek is out of China as well. But there's a bunch of interesting kind of really small models. Also, Google has one called Gemma. All of them,
I'm familiar.
Yeah, are designed to either run on a phone or run on very, very low-end hardware. So I'm looking at setting something like that up and seeing if that is something that is possible with my limited hardware that I have in my house.
I find that so interesting, and that is like the one or two steps above what I'm familiar with. I play within the the models that are a bit more closed source, like ChatGPT or Anthropic. Recently, there's been some news coming out about Amazon acquiring that AI wearable company called B-E-E. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is chatting about AI wearables. It's definitely a 2026 conversation. It's far too early to be having it now. But what do you think about that future of AI wearables? Like, would you, Nathan, wear a watch or a pendant necklace to record everything you say?
Well, here's the thing. I've heard there are a number of AI wearables already. So it's not a 2026 conversation. You're going to keep talking about it because somebody said they're using AI as a conflict resolution device for their relationship. But the AI device thing it's definitely going to continue to grow. It's going to be something that I think we have to reckon with. My concerns right now is AI is still really showing itself as a insecure environment. OpenAI chat logs that were published and then got indexed by Google, which included all sorts of PII information and very personal stuff.
That's such a great point, Nate, like especially for the data privacy. You start to think about, what if you were having an off-the-cuff conversation over a work dinner while wearing your wearable, and you're starting to have some conversations that are considered to be off the record, but it transcribes.
We all say things all the time that we don't mean and that are, fine, that we wouldn't want made available for public consumption. And that's the concern, right?
I doubt at the 2026 release of these products that I'm speaking of, there will be a context-aware wearable to understand body language as well. So definitely an interesting space to play in.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, here's my perspective on it. We're going to have to continue to reckon with it because in my experience and my belief is that people will always give up privacy for convenience. And these things will become increasingly convenient and powerful and helpful. And that tends to override privacy concerns for people. But it's still, for me right now, I'm not ready to put one on. And my wife certainly would not be ready for me to wear one around the house all the time.
Listen, I won't sign up to being an early adopter of an AI wearable. My husband would not be too keen on that one. But the purpose of this episode in particular is to welcome Kate Russell, our guest today. So Kate is the founder of Humane, a consultancy focused on helping organizations integrate AI through a people-first lens. With over 18 years of experience in brand communications and leadership, Kate is on a mission to make sure AI enhances and does not replace human potential. Welcome, Kate, to Mind the Model.
Thanks for having me, Em and Nath. Very excited to be here and chat with you both.
We'd like to start off with a couple of quick fire kind of punchy questions. What's your go-to Gen AI model?
So if you had asked me a month ago, it would have been Grok.
Okay.
Really?
That's
Really,
the first time I've ever heard that. Okay.
yeah, I know, and everyone keeps saying that. I just really liked the way it responded to things that I asked or the way it wrote.
Okay.
However, in the last month, I've upgraded to kind of ChatGPT 4 or 4.1, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
I'm using that, and that's my favorite. So,
Okay.
but I think it's actually really important that you try both, because I think for a
Agreed.
while I was using a couple to kind of see how the answers came out, and actually preferred Grok, whereas now I'm a ChatGPT girl
For now.
for now.
And then continue on, just quick fire question for you. What is the last thing you asked AI to do for you?
How do I deal with a toddler who's 2 years old who doesn't want to get dressed? What are some fun games that I can play to help the situation every morning?
And did it work? What was the advice?
Yeah, to play a game, to pretend that we were spiders, and then he had to put his arms through. It was it was actually very creative. So it worked. I loved it.
That's so funny because there's actually a report recently that Sam Altman actually uses ChatGPT for parenting advice as well. I, too, have been known to do that, especially why is my toddler not sleeping overnight?
Honestly, it's a game changer. I actually wish I had have had it when he was a newborn.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well it's going to work on my teenagers, but it's good to know that for toddlers at least. Have you ever had a good old-fashioned AI fail? Something that didn't work for you?
Yeah, it's funny. Prior to probably last week, I actually hadn't really had a big fail. But last week I was trying out an AI-powered calendar assistant just to kind of see with meetings and, like many working parents, how kind of I can
Finding the
manage it.
efficiency, love it.
Yep. And I blocked out time for family commitments every Friday afternoon in my diary. And
Nice.
a certain week I'd noticed it had scheduled a meeting over the top of it, and I couldn't quite work out why. But when I went in and looked at the assistant's kind of logic, it had kind of flagged that the meeting was higher priority and it had downgraded my family time to more personal and flexible.
Savage.
And so it was really interesting because it hit a nerve a little bit. And I think it's interesting what it shows is that obviously the system was optimizing for efficiency. And that is something that we risk or assume it understands what our priorities are. So I think, obviously it was very solvable, but I think it's a really interesting one and a good reminder that there still needs to be certain things like human oversight.
Human in the loop. That's exactly right.
Well, and I think training as well, right? So that's something that you could very much have just trained your your assistant to do if you'd known that you needed to.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think it shows that you really do need to guide it by what we truly value.
Last quick question for you, Kate. What do you do in terms of prompting?
One of the things that I was taught really early on was how to brief people properly. And so whether it was briefing a spokesperson before they did an interview or whether it was briefing someone who perhaps was working, underneath me, and it was all around, okay, how do you brief someone to set them up for success? And that's actually the lens that I've brought into everything I do with AI.
So is there a format you follow then, like a structure?
Very brief structure, but it's kind of like, okay, what's my objective? Who are my target audience?
Yep.
What's the tone that I want to use? And what does success look like? And then kind of just put that in whatever shape or form. And most of the time I'd say it delivers a reasonable answer. I always then refine it similar to another brief. I kind of go, okay, that's not quite right, or this needs to be refined. But that's always the way that I've approached it.
I love that because it really does show the power of like your marketing experience and your knowledge. Just want to go into a little bit more about you and your business, Kate. What inspired you to launch Humane?
My background's, as you've mentioned, has always been in the kind of marketing, PR, comm space. In the last 10 years, I've definitely dabbled in kind of more GM styles, some operations and leadership. But in the last 2 years, I prior to going on mat leave, I transitioned kind of really seamlessly into the people and culture space. And I think that was because I saw a great opportunity. So as a marketer and a brand person, whenever I'd kind of dealt with previous people and culture, it was always kind of like this really rigid style department that either people didn't have a great relationship with, or it was very black and white. And I always saw it as a huge opportunity. I always thought, imagine like a brand marketer could do the people and culture side. Like, imagine how good the internal
reinventing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, imagine how creative it would be. If I think about when I was working at Lululemon, I was a bit of a face of the brand, and I was always out there selling the brand. And I thought, well, that's also how you get people in working for you. And so I had transitioned into people and culture quite seamlessly, and I was working for a marketing agency. And then I went on maternity leave, and after I decided to take a 2 years break. And my husband has been working in the AI space for a while and quite deep, and we've been having lots of conversations over the last year about it. And I could see in the AI space, there was all this talk about tools and all this talk about how to productivity, efficiency, but there wasn't really anyone talking about the human side about it. So, like, what's going to be an impact on the people? What's going to be the impact on our culture? And for me, I guess that's what I live and breathe. And so I saw a bit of a gap in the market and thought, well, why don't I start going out having conversations with businesses to really, I guess, get them thinking about this side of AI transformation, not the tools, not the efficiency, the productivity, but I would call the people and culture side the most important side of a digital transformation.
And so why focus on culture as opposed to tech, though? Like, what's if I have all the best tech in the world, isn't that going to solve my problems?
No. And the reason being is that AI transformation isn't just a tech shift, it's a mindset shift. So we need to help people understand and embrace that shift. And that, for me, is what determines success. Okay. And a stat just to kind of back this up is that, in 2023, and I'm sure this stat's probably even increased, McKinsey's showed that 70% of digital transformation fail. Not because of that the technology didn't work, but because of cultural barriers. So things like unclear vision, poor communication, fear, misaligned leadership. So if you ask me why culture matters more, I'd say it's because AI will scale whatever culture you already have.
Right. Okay.
It will amplify that existing culture.
If you have fear and silos, it will scale and amplify that. If you have trust and learning, it will scale and amplify that as well.
I saw that you recently ran a LinkedIn poll asking if companies should slow down the tech rollouts to allow people strategies to catch up. Overall, a majority of respondents, myself included, said yes, companies should slow that tech rollout.
Aren't you biasing the poll? Aren't you biasing the poll?
Perhaps. But my question to you, Kate, is what is your perspective, and why do you think a majority of people said yes?
I think about 87 or 88% believe companies should slow down the tech to really give that space for the people strategies, I guess, to evolve or solve. And I do think this reflects strong support for a more human-paced approach to transformation. So for me, it was a really clear indicator that people are feeling the gap between the tech speed and the cultural readiness. And I think we can all cast our mind back to some type of kind of digital transformation, whether it's a small one like putting a new system in, a new CRM, maybe it's a new marketing tool. And I reckon if we all thought about it, we would have thought about how much effort we put into the planning of it, how much effort we put into the tech
all
itself.
The strategies behind it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I reckon if we looked at it, there'd be a very, very small part that looked at our people side of it. So not only our adoption, but our communication, our follow-up. Yeah, and I'd say that poll was quite interesting. I mean, I kind of anticipated that would have been the answer. But for me, it did kind of validate my mission that the market is aware that the people side of transformation is lagging. And it's also, I would say, a strong signal to business leaders that urgency shouldn't eclipse sustainability. So slowing down isn't about stalling, but it's more, I guess, about the setting that right pace for adoption and that lasting impact. Again, there's no point putting in something and then, in 6 months' time having to kind of, I guess, do the whole thing again because it wasn't adopted, which, we can all think of an example of that where it just didn't work.
Maybe this is related, but I mean, Klarna is a kind of, I guess, a really strong cautionary tale of maybe the wrong way of rolling out AI in your business. Are there some examples, or what can we learn from that? And are there other examples of businesses doing it well?
Canva. Actually, this is a great example of providing space to experiment. So they gave their teams a full week off high priority work, or work that had to happen, to explore AI tools. So there was no KPIs, there was no pressure. Basically, they were just given the time to experiment. And I think what was interesting, that when you do that, it tells your employees, we trust you.
Yeah, it's a strong signal, right?
Absolutely. I think another example that I've referred to before is ANZ. They broke down these siloed kind of structures that I think sometimes we can see in digital transformations, and they formed cross-functional teams for one of their Gen AI pilots. And basically, they brought in their tech, they brought in their compliance, they brought in their frontline teams, and basically had them all at the same table. And I think that's also how trust is built, but also how innovation can scale. And then another great example is Services Australia. They involved their their customer, I think there must have been their customer service representatives. They actually involved them in designing their customer-facing AI. And I think if you think about that, those people are at the forefront of listening to customers, hearing things daily in and out. And so that's their staff actually helped choose the language. They helped flag risks. They helped define interactions. And so by creating that buy-in and ensuring that the team, I guess, felt involved early on, it actually worked out quite well for them.
I guess one of the questions is are people going to be so excited to sign up to help teach the AI when then maybe their job that they're teaching, again, like Klarna?
If we want to progress our career, we do need to upskill. We do need to kind of be across what's kind of coming, but that human leadership side is always what I would focus on. I think it's moving away from control and compliance towards empathy, towards trust, towards cultural accountability. And leaders, I believe, will be judged not just by business performance.
How do you help leaders shift their teams from fear to curiosity with AI, knowing that, perhaps in the next few years, they may have their role impacted, but in that initial conversation with leaders and their team, how do they spark curiosity?
I will always talk until I'm blue in the face about that AI transformation isn't just a technology shift, but it's mindset. And helping people understand that is really what I think will determine success. And when I talk about culture, what I guess talk about and what I define it is the shared values, behaviors, the unwritten rules that shape how things get done inside an organization. So
like the feeling, the vibe of the organization.
Exactly. I like to think of it as the organization's invisible operating system. It's how people make decisions, solve problems, speak up and adapt. And when AI gets introduced, or when you bring in automation, data, augmentation, all of those things, culture becomes a difference between the resistance and the readiness. And because mindset governs behavior, behavior is what drives adoption. And so if people don't understand the why, they don't see the value to them, and they may feel excluded, and no amount of tech training or tech rollout will land.
From our perspective, though, what advice do you give to leaders when, they are looking at many of the tasks in their organization being automated by AI? Like, what is your inspiration and your top tip for them?
Not to start with the negative, but I think it's really important that we're aware of what can derail an AI transformation.
Sure.
So I think number one is this fear-based mindset. So I think, there's so many stats going around, but, some that I guess I've referenced is that PwC found 31% of workers fear AI will take their job. And I think maybe another 40% or so don't know how it will impact them. Now that's 70% that they're potentially people that there's fear that lead to resistance. And so I think it's being really conscious of knowing that fear-based mindset can absolutely derail something that, I guess, something like an AI transformation.
And do you feel like that's the biggest barrier right now to that adoption then? Is it the fear?
I do. I think there's a couple, but I do think the fear is a big, big part of it. And a great example is Woolworths. So they really tackled this by involving frontline staff in shaping their AI essentials training. So another example of bringing in staff early, getting that staff curious, getting them to really understand where they're at, telling them about the why. And so it wasn't just about the tools, but it was really about demystifying AI and showing how it could actually make their job and their tasks better. I think another part of what derails an AI transformation is poor leadership communication. So in a crisis situation, if something is not communicated, people will start to tell their own stories and background conversation will start. And I think this is another thing that can really happen in an AI transformation, is that if leaders don't address AI or only talk about it in technical terms, people fill in the blanks, and they fill in those blanks with fear.
Okay.
We've kind of touched on a little bit around not allowing, I flipped it. So another thing that can derail is not allowing a safe space to experiment or a safe space to play. So what are the cultural enablers of AI transformation? And I think number one is start with why. So for all the Simon Sinek fans out there, always goes back to the why.
Yep.
So linking AI to your business's core process. That is key.
And the values, would you say?
I think absolutely. Yeah, looking at your existing values and thinking about how AI can sit within them. So, for example, if you have a value that's around transparency, what does AI look like in that? Aligning it. Another one around a successful transformation is upskilling early and continuously. And I think, again, Canva are a great example of this kind of play, learn, explore. I think when you remove the pressure to get it right, people start experimenting. And that confidence grows within people, which then obviously there's a ripple on effect throughout the business. Another one which is kind of going back to this curiosity point you mentioned, Em, is model curiosity over certainty.
Is that a leadership trait then, or is that what is that? Give me some specifics. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I think leaders don't need to be the experts. They need to be the learners. So for example, what could that look like? A manager saying, I actually used AI to draft this brief, to draft this piece of content. What are we missing, guys? How do we bring more into it? Is there something that I've missed here? And I think that really shows humility and invites others in. And I think just another one is this leading with the values and ethics. So thinking about how, and I think this is a question that's a really good one to ask, is how will our values show up in our use of AI? And I think that's even just a really good thing to do as a group. So if we stand for creativity or we stand for inclusivity, does our AI strategy reflect that?
It's quite interesting integrating AI into the culture. I can see the ripple on effects of how it'll actually lend itself to really strengthening a business and having it be a bit more future proof than others who are very, like Klarna, short term viewed. Is that right? Like the
short-termism.
You can't really, short-termism. Yeah.
And I think a kind of simple example that it seems to resonate is that I always think about AI and comparing it to other tools we use. So if we think about spell check, we don't feel like we're cheating using spell check, or Google instead of memorizing encyclopedias. That doesn't feel like we're cheating, but what it does, it helps us work smarter, and it helps us work faster. And so I think AI can be another tool that's like that.
What are the mindset shifts that leaders need to have when rolling out AI across their business?
Yeah, so I think it's that curiosity piece. I think it's that knowing that you're not going to get it right all the time. So as a leader, that this is not a set and forget. And what I like to think about is that culture isn't static. And so you can't say, oh, great, I've done culture, tick. It's not. It's ongoing. And so it's one of those things that needs to be checked in on regularly and needs to be, I guess, worked on regularly.
So I'm hearing like curiosity then really is curiosity and repetition.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that vulnerability. So, we've touched on the fact that a leader could come into a meeting and say, I use AI on this to draft this. What do you guys think? Instead of perhaps, having that fear-based mentality that people are sitting in the room, they've all used AI, but no one is going to say it because they're scared.
It's the sharing the failures, sharing the learnings, and bringing everyone on the journey, that vulnerability piece.
Yeah, and I think they're all skills that if we go back to 101 leadership, that's what it would look like. So it's not new, it's not groundbreaking, but I think what's really my point here is that we need to go back to that. And that needs to be a part of an AI transformation. It's not an afterthought. So it's not great. Here's our strategy for our AI digital transformation. Oh, and then, we need to tell people about it and we need to make sure that it's cool. What is our people and culture strategy and how does that form a big part of that digital transformation?
Yeah, and it is well understood leadership theory that is just being applied to AI. That's that's kind of the strong sense I'm getting here.
So people are just thinking about...
They're just reacting.
Yeah, and they're thinking about AI from a productivity and efficiency point of view.
Right.
They're going...
The tech and the tools point of view.
The tech and the tools. Cool. What are the tools we need? And I think there's obviously a lot of reactivity going at the moment where it's like, we haven't got it. How do we bring the tools? Quick, let's just bring something in, or what's the area of the business? What's the area of the business that we need to cut costs? Cool, customer service, we can bring it in and we can get rid of people. Yeah. And it's that kind of a knee-jerk reaction, or even just not thinking about the people and culture side of things and what the implications are going to be.
What would you say to a leader of a business where they have a bit of a scenario where there are really heavy AI advanced users and adopters versus really cautious people who are lagging behind?
It's like anything, you've got to look at kind of your two different audiences. I don't think you can blend an answer or a solution across all of them, because essentially you've got two different kind of audiences within your business. I'd be looking at the audience that perhaps isn't as well versed. How do we upskill them? How do we provide training to really, I guess, help elevate and understanding why? Is it that they're is it fear-based? And really understanding the why behind, or is it just that they haven't had time? Because obviously fear and time, very, very different. So understanding that first. A great thing to do is, how do we get the ones who have perhaps used it for a while? How do we get use cases for them? So how do we get, someone in marketing who's been ahead of the game? How do we get them to really tell a story to the rest of the business around how they've saved 2 hours a week?
And is that about celebrating those use cases then? Is that the answer?
Yeah, I think there's a combination. I think it's about sharing, again, back to this vulnerability, like what are we doing? How are we experimenting? And then, how are we sharing our wins and our failures to then help, I guess, bring those other people along on the journey?
It almost ties back to that LinkedIn poll that I referenced earlier, like slowing down the tech rollout to ensure the people are brought on that journey. And to be honest, when I saw that poll, it took me a moment, like probably about 2 to 3 minutes of really sitting there wondering what was the best answer from my perspective. Because if you slow down tech, could you be leapfrogged by your competitors?
Yeah.
But if you don't slow down tech, then you risk alienating like your people and the culture in your business. So
classic innovator's dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it's not necessarily, that was a pretty black and white question, but I'd say the answer isn't necessarily about slowing down the kind of the scaling. It's about setting the right pace for adoption and that lasting impact.
Do you have a sense of like how many businesses do or don't have AI policies at this point? Like, I wonder, have you seen any stats on that? I haven't, but I'm guessing it's still surprisingly low.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I kind of probably get a little bit tripped up on is like, I'm not sure why, because
Fear.
And the reason I say that is that, I mean, look, you can find, a simple AI policy you can use AI to draft one up.
Yeah.
What I'd say, though, is I'd be spending on the time on rolling the policy out. So that's where I'd be putting my time, not on drafting it or finding it or whatever it is, but I'd be spending it on, ensuring how do we get everyone on board on this?
But you're saying at the very least, every company needs to have an AI policy.
Yeah. Well, otherwise, it'd be like a company having no leave policy in a business, right? So imagine you started and there was no leave policy and you're like, cool, so can I just have every Friday off? Or
the amount of questions that would go to your manager and the time wasted on asking if this is okay or not.
Yeah, and maybe that's too simple, I don't know. But for me, I'm just like, well, there needs to be some sort of policy in place. I actually was talking to a company the other day, quite a big company, and I was kind of asking one of their departments around what they're using it for, and that person, he said, I probably shouldn't be putting customer personal information in there. And I was like, no, do you guys have a policy around that?
You really shouldn't.
Like, I don't think so. And I'm like, cool, I'd probably start there. So again, I think because people there's just no one's talking enough about it. And so when people don't talk about it, people just take matters into their own hands. They're like, oh, cool, I'm just going to use ChatGPT or I'm going to use it, but I'm just not necessarily going to think about all those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, I started a new job next week, and in the onboarding paperwork, there was a specific AI policy. And I told my husband, I'm so excited to read this because this is very relevant
to
my world.
Reading policy. That's my favorite part of a new job.
Yes, but I wanted to get quite clear because I want to ensure the organization is aligned with me in wanting to use AI for scaling up projects and efficiencies, but also you have to do it in a responsible manner.
Yeah.
And I think going back to your point about the business values, being quite transparent and understanding that your staff are going to use it, whether or not you say it's okay, but being quite clear about the information that you do put in. Yeah. It's quite concerning that business leaders are putting in PII data to Gen AI models. It does not sit too well with me.
If people were to take things out of this conversation, I think one of the big things that I'd say is stop asking how do we get more out of people with AI, but more how can we do more for people with AI?
Right. So reframing the conversation to be more of augmentation. Yeah, because that is a much less scary word you hear as an employee compared to automation. You're like, ooh.
Yeah. Even as business leaders, I think it's important that we look at augmentation before automation, because how do we know? How do we know that, we might want to upskill our staff and we might spend time doing that and realize that that's actually what we need to focus on versus, a great example, Klarna, where they went in and they cut 1,200 customer service staff. And it looked great at first, 75% productivity increase, all of that. And then they realized that the fact that their employees lost trust, their customers lost trust, and the irony out of that situation was that one of their kind of core propositions was relationships.
Just to wrap up, Kate, because this time has gone so quickly, we have loved having you on the pod. From your perspective, are you an AI optimist? Are you a realist? Or are you a skeptic or a pessimist?
An optimist. I'm excited when I think about what it can do. I'm excited by what I've already seen it do, and that's probably quite a small part. If I personally think about it, I don't know if I could have launched my business how I've done it. I use AI to build my website. I've all these things that, and I don't know if I could have done that. I've built some online training programs using AI, and I'm just not sure I could have done that to the quality and also at the speed that without AI. So I think I'm optimistic.
Well, Kate, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been, I think, really, really great to hear your perspective, and I feel like I have learned a fair bit. I mean, I took some notes around making sure that we make people have a safe space and that you're tackling that fear and aligning with values. I mean, those are all the kind of things that I took. Was there anything else that you want to leave us with?
When you think about AI, think about your people and culture. Think about what you want for them and plan for it.
Great advice. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, guys.
I really enjoyed that chat with Kate. I really valued her perspective coming at the AI transformation conversation from more of that people and culture lens.
Yeah. The thing that I kind of thought about was I wonder if anybody's looking back to what was the rollout of email like? What was the rollout of the PC like? And what are the lessons learned from those? Because they were disruptive technologies when people put PCs on desks. And it's going to be one of those as seismic changes for our business lives and personal lives as well.
Yeah, spot on. I think there's a lot to be learned. And to Kate's point about, ensuring that it's embedded within the culture as that invisible operating system, that's where we'll see the business successes.
Couldn't agree more. All right, let's wrap things up. Look, thank you very much, everyone. It's been lovely to have us. We'll be back in your feed shortly. And please remember, the intelligence might be artificial, but the wins, they're all real. See you next time. This episode was brought to you by TestChimp. TestChimp is a web developer's best friend. Meet the QA co-pilot that knows your code better than you do. TestChimp uses deep runtime context to automate your testing workflows, generate scenarios, write scripts, and fix bugs all in one place. Stop wasting time and start shipping quality code faster. Bugs suck, but finding bugs doesn't have to with TestChimp.